Hi everybody, welcome to the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Danna Wilberg. Well, today's guest, Cynthia Sue Larson, is a best-selling author, researcher, and transformational speaker who helps people visualize and access whole new worlds of possibility. Cynthia hosts Living the Quantum Dream on the Dream Vision 7 radio network. She's been featured on the Discovery Channel, the History Channel, Coast to Coast AM, and BBC. And she's presented papers at the international conferences on science, spirituality, and consciousness. Cynthia holds a degree in physics from UC Berkeley, an MBA and Doctor of Divinity degree. She reminds us to ask in every situation, how good can it get? Welcome, Cynthia Sue Larson.
Oh, thank you, Donna. Such a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's always fun to have you back, and I learned so much, really. So we're going to start out with just a little bit of background and a little, question about how you got into physics. When you were growing up, what was it that intrigued you to get into this area of expertise?
I've been fascinated by the whole idea of who we really are and the idea of having a sense that there was some part of me that felt like I was here before I was born. So I wanted to get into the whole idea of this and the nature of reality. And there wasn't really a degree program in what I really wanted to study. Mm-hmm. Physics with a dash of psychology was the closest I could get at the time. So.
Well, you've written several books on things to do with physics, quantum jumps, and name some of your other books.
Reality Shifts, mm-hmm. High Energy Money, Aura Advantage, Karen Kimball and the Dreamweaver's Web, and I've got a meditation CD, Aura Healing Meditations.
Well, you've been a busy girl. So you have put together a pop quiz that we're going to do with the audience. Isn't that cool? You guys get to participate in this phenomenon here. So why don't you begin by explaining how this is going to work?
Okay. Well, the idea is that we live in a superposition of states, and often we think in terms of quantum physics as something very complicated that we can't understand, and we don't need to understand it because it has to do with the realm of the very small. Recently, there's a lot of research to show that that's not true. And a survey of physicists showed that more than 2/3 of the physicists interviewed believe that you and I and everybody watching all exist in a superposition of states. And what that means is, you may have heard of the Schrodinger's cat being alive and dead.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
And so if you've heard of that and you don't know what's going on with that, it's the idea that it was a thought experiment mm-hmm. intended to demonstrate the ridiculous quality of quantum physics and the impossibility of these ideas applying to our everyday lives. However, so the thought experiment consists of a box in mm-hmm. which there'd be a cat with a vial of poison, some radioactive isotope that decays at some unpredictable, well, not random, but it's kind of, the basis of it is a little bit random because mm-hmm. we can't predict when or if that might trigger the release of the poison and the death of the cat. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is that the quantum particles actually do exist in both, well, you may have heard of that they can be spin up or spin down. So they can be everything that's possible for them to be. It's like flipping a coin in the air and it just stays spinning. Mm-hmm. And it just stays spinning. It's in that superposition of states. And then when you finally measure it, then you catch it and you have a measurement.
Okay.
That's an easy way to think of it. So the idea here is that if we all exist in a superposition of states, we would expect to see signs of it. So what kind of signs would we notice? We would notice that when you talk about your distant past, your childhood, mm-hmm. that your siblings would disagree with you about what really happened.
Yeah.
And you'll think they're just mistaken. You'll think that they've gone crazy or they clearly are not telling the truth. Maybe they're lying. But instead, if you think in terms of what if they're actually experiencing a different reality? So that's one. Mm-hmm. Another possible way that you could see a superposition of states is just amazing, miraculous kinds of spontaneous remission of disease, mm-hmm. or if you're starting to catch a cold and suddenly you're well. So these kinds of things is going from one state of being to another.
Okay.
A third way would be if you've noticed movies or books and you've read them before and you've watched them before, but now the dialogue is different. And you might think, well, I just didn't remember it correctly.
Okay.
So this is the setup for different ways you might notice it. And we're going to do a quiz today to determine whether you might have already experienced some alternate histories.
Okay, and these are pretty common things.
These are very common
that we're going to talk about.
Yes, they are.
So do we want to start?
Let's go to the first one. So we can look at pop quiz slide number 1, and here write down or clearly think how you spell the name of this family of bears, famous for starring in numerous children's books. So it's something bears.
Yeah. Okay, so this is pretty easy for everybody to do, and if you don't have a pencil and pen available to you right now, just kind of put it in the back of your mind.
But if you're with a group of people, don't say it out loud.
Okay.
Okay.
There's rules, okay?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
Okay, next one. There are just 6 of these.
Oh boy, paper's stuck together. It's going to take me forever
That's
to get
okay.
this apart.
Gives people a minute. The spelling is important on that first one.
Okay.
Okay, number 2. Here we have a scene from a famous Disney movie. This is Snow White, and the question is, when the queen looks in the mirror, there are 2 words that she says first. Something, something on the wall. Who is the fairest one of all?
Ah.
That's question number 2.
Believe it or not, these got me. All right.
Number 3. Write down or clearly think the words that Fred Rogers sings in the opening song on his TV show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And it's a beautiful day in neighborhood. Number 4. This is the line from the movie Star Wars, where we have Darth Vader talking with Luke Skywalker, and he says something or other, I am your father.
Okay, everybody got that?
Number 5. This one's a little different. It's just the question, when do you recall first having heard that Nelson Mandela died? Just a rough idea. Doesn't have to be an exact day.
All right.
And the last one, number 6. Write down or clearly think the word to complete this sentence. Thanksgiving falls on the blank Thursday in November. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
So give everyone just a moment. And just write down the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
This isn't something where you want to switch it around a lot.
So we're going to go
And now
over
we
the
can go to
answers?
the answer page. Yes,
Alrighty.
the big reveal. Okay, there are 2 columns here. On the left, it's what people often remember. On the right, the official current history. So for those bears, the family is called the Berenstain Bears.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Berenstein.
Yes.
And a lot of people do. This came up in
Yes.
17 magazine. It's hit the news and front page in some sections of papers in Australia. And it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing. People are noticing these Berenstain Bears. And officially, if you look at the children's books, you'll see the spelling is Stain. And there's almost no trace of the EIN whatsoever, which is strange, because if I'd seen Berenstain, and a lot of people comment, you'd expect that your bear paws would be stained with berries,
Right.
be that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I always wondered, are these Jewish bears?
I know. Well, my kids had the books.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I thought it was
Right.
with the EIN. Okay.
EIN. Okay, second one.
Yeah.
A lot of people remember Snow White, the queen, saying, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? And actually, if you play the scene from the movie now, she says, magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all?
Okay.
And a lot of people, like I, think that's a bit strange.
So it hasn't been changed.
It hasn't been changed. This is the evidence of an alternate history.
Okay.
These are the kind of things I'm talking about to show that we have all experienced these superposition of
Okay.
states. It's normal. Okay, the next one. This is Mr. Rogers singing It's a Beautiful Day in, and I would think, the neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
And he says, this neighborhood. And you can hear him singing that, which really sounds odd to me. Because I grew up with Mr. Rogers.
See,
My
I got them all
children-
wrong.
Yeah. Okay. And then the next one is Star Wars, where it's blank, I am your father. A lot of people remember he says, Luke, I am your father. And now he says, no, I am your father. It's a correction, part of the dialogue. It's just a little strange. Nelson Mandela is the Mandela effect. A lot of people have been tracking this also.
Okay.
It's become a big thing this year. And I remember that he died while he was still in jail in the 1980s. And I'm so glad that that's not currently the official version, because he did pass away December of 2013. And so if you remember the 1980s.
Yes.
A lot of people do.
Okay.
And so then you get to see him die a second time, and it strikes you as a little bit odd when this happens. And sometimes you'll notice people are alive again and you thought that they died before.
That's interesting because I thought the very same thing. I thought he died.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then number 6, some people are noticing that Thanksgiving used to be on the 3rd Thursday in November, myself included, because I set up International Aura Awareness Day specifically to avoid Thanksgiving. I put it on the 4th Saturday. Now, every single year, it's always getting clobbered by Thanksgiving. I would never have put it there. But now, the official current history is Thanksgiving for many decades has been the 4th Thursday. So these are interesting examples.
That is so far out.
Yes.
Really. So there's so many different examples, and as you were talking about it, you know, I'm starting to think of all the incidences where, you know, there's a possibility that I was living in an alternate universe.
Right. Well, people think of it as an alternate universe, and what I'm suggesting is that it's a natural part of daily life to exist in a superposition of states. And that's what I talk about in my book, Quantum Jumps, is that this is part of the way our senses work. So if you think of it in a fractal sense, you can think that the very small effects of the quantum processes that are very much like teleportation inside our nose that allow us to tell two identically shaped molecules, such as hydrogen and deuterium, apart, even though they're the same shapes. And so the square peg, square hole, round peg, round hole theory of smell has been completely obliterated because that's not really working. So more predictive is the actual way that we can tell the smell based on the way these different particles interact with our nose. And so there is, even though the molecular shape is identical, the smell can be different because of the excitation of the electrons in the nose receptacles.
Oh my goodness.
They teleport differently. And so you're going to respond differently to hydrogen than deuterium. And it's very interesting. So all of our senses appear to have that quality to them. This is the way birds like the European robin that I talk about in Quantum Jumps navigates better by day than night because it's actually working with free radicals from the photons in the sun. And in the book I also describe photosynthesis and the way all of the plants, and this is the most rock solid case that we really have the most proof for, is photosynthesis absolutely is a quantum process. And that's, again, the point being that that I want to make today is that these things are happening in our bodies, they're happening in nature, and everywhere we look, the things that we want to put into our quantum computers, they're already here in nature. Nature's already doing this. And we are even thinking and remembering things in a quantum cognitive fashion. And so we're not illogical the way a lot of psychologists used to think, that if you ask questions out of sequence, people give different answers. And actually, this is what you'd expect from a quantum computer to do, because when you ask the questions in a different sequence, the relationships change, and this is the way our memory works. And so there's so many different fields of science all showing the same thing right now, that quantum is everywhere. And you can think of it like a cascading sort of an effect. Like we start with the small senses that we get, sight, sound, touch, smell, and then it becomes a bigger and bigger overall effect. And
well, my eyes are starting to glaze over, and the smoke is coming out of the top of my head. But in some level, I get this.
yes.
You know, it's I may not understand all the terminology that goes along with it, but I get the sense of what you're talking about because I do experience it, and it does catch me.
Yes.
You know, in everyday life. And, you know, this is kind of a hard thing for most people to wrap their heads around.
Right.
But here you are explaining it and using different examples. And the pop quiz was very helpful because that sort of hit home. And I hope it hits home with the viewers too, that, you know, these little, I could have sworn Thanksgiving was the 3rd Thursday of the month.
Yes. So when you notice these things, what I'd like to invite people to do is start talking about it with people. And when you disagree about what happened many years ago, keep an open mind and an open heart that people actually experience things differently. So we can have different histories. And this is something that's part of quantum logic, which I'm not going to go there because you're already getting the smoke, but I love quantum logic and we need it.
Please touch it because, you know, the show's about you.
Okay. Well, the idea with logic, and we think of it in terms of Mr. Spock on Star Trek, and he says this is logical or this is illogical. And we think of it when we have computer systems because they use logic gates. They have and, or, and not logic gates. And for quantum computers, we'll also be using and, or, and not logic gates, but a whole bunch more gates as well. And two-way through time, two-directional gates. So this is a way of looking at that superposition of states, and the way nature solves problems is kind of like by running all the paths through the maze simultaneously and choosing an optimal path. And this is what we're going to be learning to do with quantum computing. And I'm suggesting we can use this in everyday life. Just like we now use a lot of terminology from classical computers. We talk about downloading some information. And we talk about the way we communicate and just kind of like get that message through to someone. And with quantum computing, we're going to start getting some new ideas about these different possibilities that are already out there. They all exist in the field of possibility, and it matters tremendously our attitude and all the things that the spiritual great teachers have taught us about staying positive, asking that question that I love so much, how good can it get? Really keeping yourself in a uplifted, at least relaxed and aware state so that you don't get burdened by your own stories and what you believe to be true. Because when you're thinking in terms of a quantum reality, the facts actually do change. And so rather than fixating on something, well, I know it happened this way, we're getting to a place where we can be more in a feeling state, more in an aware state. Just being in this present moment now. You hear a lot of consciousness teachers talk about that.
So if you go, it almost seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am, but if you're, you know, we've always been in this rigid state of thinking, and now it's like we're almost like flexible. Is that kind of what it is? That it's just more of a flowing way of thinking?
I'd say so, which is ironic because actually quantum is the definition of things that are quantized or very, so it's almost like block-like, but because when we feel it, we can feel the wave-like quality of it as well. So we can feel the vibe of it, the energy of it. And this is what happens in nature when a flock of birds flies together. And starlings fly exactly like a quantum liquid. They fly simultaneously, all adjusting their flight paths exactly at the same moment. So it's not like a slow thing where some turn and then the others follow. It's instant. And that's exactly what quantum liquids do.
Okay.
So, and you can, what I'm saying is we see it in nature all around us. That's what I want people to understand. This is natural. It's not weird. It's not too difficult. It's not too hard. You don't need to puzzle through all the math because plants don't do that, but they can photosynthesize with amazing efficiency. And we can do that too by knowing that what we need is always there.
Oh, wow. Can you believe we're almost out of time?
Yes.
Gosh. Do you want to give people your information so they know where to contact you?
Sure. My website is realityshifters.com, and that is the best way to reach me. I've also got a YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter, so forth, but I have a newsletter that comes out once a month, so you can subscribe to that and make sure that when you do, that you let your email system know that to accept email from realityshifters.com.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's give some information about the Paranormal Connection.
The Paranormal Connection airs the first and third Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Our companion show, Story Connection, airs the second and fourth Thursdays of each month. Each episode repeats the following Friday at 1:30 p.m. and Saturday at 5:30 a.m. Watch these programs online at the same air times by going to accesssacramento.org and clicking Watch 17. In the Sacramento region, you can see us on Comcast Channel 17 and on AT&T Channel 99. You can find previously aired shows on the Paranormal Connection YouTube channel. For information on upcoming shows and previous Paranormal Connection guests, go to paranormalconnectiontv.blogspot.com. You can contact us at paranormalconnectiontv@gmail.com. And don't forget, find us on Facebook, become a friend, and become a fan.
Well, I'm so sorry that we're running out of time. I hope everybody will go and check out Cynthia's books, because they're easier to read than I may be coming off, because this just blows my mind. I'm sorry. Every time you come on here, I think, okay, I get this, and it's like, pew, it just explodes all over again. But it's good, and it's good to know these things. It's good to learn these new things. So I appreciate you coming on and
thank you so
and
much.
sharing them with us. And we didn't get to talk about money. We didn't get to talk about those other things. So you're going to have to come back on the show.
Thank
and,
you. I'd love
and
to.
we'll have to talk about this again. Just quickly though, you were just Deepak Chopra.
Yes.
You were. What was that like?
That was wonderful. I really had a great time talking with Deepak Chopra. I met with him in New York City. So
he's one of my
that was
faves.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much, and thank you for what you do, because it's very enlightening and something that we're all going to be, shifting towards in the future. So I appreciate that. And I'd like to thank my crew, Laura, Ted, Lorene, Don, David, Rick, and Ricky, for doing such a fabulous job in getting the show on the air for us. And if you can, if you'd like to know more about me, go check out my website, dannawilberg.com, and you can check out my romance suspense novels. And with that, we're going to say goodnight.